Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to Frankenstein Tea, short story program from the Island Free Library. Short stories for adult listeners. This is an adult program, which means I read adult topics, themes, authors, language, that kind of stuff. So welcome, Friday afternoon. We made it to Friday, everybody. For us at the library, we have one more work day tomorrow, but Friday's still an accomplishment. And how's everybody out there doing? Okay? Yeah? Everybody all right? I'm having tea today, and I made it a few minutes ago, so it's like perfect right now. It's lovely. I'm going to take another sip. There's my dad. Hi, Dad. Dad, do you have tea today? It's the kind of tea, it's like, I don't know. Oh, it's English tea time. It's kind of like plain black tea. It's the kind of tea I like to have with honey. We're going to have to get some honey at the library. We've used all our honey up, but we need some nice Block Island honey. I'll have to go get some. I went there at Christmas. I bought presents from Block Island honey, but I should have bought the staff some honey. I'm going to have to get there. I'll get there. So I'm going to read a story today by Vladimir Nabokov. I think Nabokov. I read a couple stories. This is a big, thick book. The stories of Vladimir Nabokov. Sometimes when a book is thick like that, this is like our Bradbury book, right? Sometimes, it's like chock full of things. So I read a few, or I read most of a few. And there's one I really like in here, but, I felt torn about it. There was, it's a little bit about a train, and we had just read about a train. So I didn't know, well, build on your train theme or read something different. It was one of those kind of moments. And then I read about a dragon, and he's fun. So he did remind me of Bradbury in here, a little bit of the mythical and the mystical, the science fiction, sort of the threads of it, the sprinkling of it. And I'm going to read the first story in this collection. And that also reminded me of a short story that I read to you from Ray Bradbury. So it's interesting. I don't know enough about it. I haven't studied these two, but I'm wondering if they were, if they spoke to each other like contemporaries, or if they, admired each other or something. I don't know any of that, but I know we have some. Let's see. It says Dmitry Nabokov was born in 1934 in Berlin and came to the United States as a young child with his parents. He graduated from Harvard, served in the U.S. Army, and then began the vocal studies that led him to become an opera and concert performer. Oh, Dmitry. So this is the son. He has translated most of his father's Russian short stories and plays and many of his novels into English. Vladimir Nabokov was born in St. Petersburg on April 23rd, 1899. His family fled to Germany in 1919 during the Bolshevik Revolution. Yeah, I think that could be about, maybe it's a little bit before Bradbury. I'm not sure. And then, Nabokov is famous for Lolita. But that's not what I'm reading today. I'm reading a short story, and it is called The Wood Sprite. And before I start, I'm going to take one more sip of tea. So I will say that I'm glad I read that to you. And just to read it one more time, he was born in Russia, 1899. His family fled to Germany in 1919. So he's 18 years old. during the Bolshevik Revolution. He died in Switzerland in 1977. Okay, here we go. See if I can. It's a big, heavy book, so I kind of want it on the table, but I don't want to lose you. I know, I'm always fidgeting. So unprofessional. You'd think I'd just have a setup by now. Been doing this a long time. Okay, for Friday, January 15th, 2021, Vladimir Nabokov's The Wood Sprite. I was pensively penning the outline of the inkstand's circular, quivering shadow. In a distant room, a clock struck the hour, while I, dreamer that I am, imagined someone was knocking at the door, softly at first, then louder and louder. He knocked 12 times and paused expectantly. "Yes, I'm here. Come in." The doorknob creaked timidly. The flame of the runny candle tilted, and he hopped sidewise, out of a rectangle of shadow, hunched, gray, powdered with the pollen of the frosty, starry night. I knew his face. Oh, how long I had known it. His right eye was still in the shadows. The left peered at me timorously, elongated, smoky green. The pupil glowed like a point of rust. That mossy gray tuft on his temple, the pale silver, scarcely noticeable eyebrow, the comical wrinkle near his whiskerless mouth, how all this teased and vaguely vexed my memory. I got up. He stepped forward. His shabby little coat seemed to be buttoned wrong, on the female side. In his hand, he held a cap. No, a dark-colored, poorly tied bundle, and there was no sign of any cap. Yes, of course I knew him, perhaps had even been fond of him, only I simply could not place the where and the when of our meetings. And we must have met often, otherwise I would not have had such a firm recollection of those cranberry lips, those pointy ears, that amusing Adam's apple. With a welcoming murmur, I shook his light, cold hand and touched the back of a shabby armchair. He perched like a crow on a tree stump and began speaking hurriedly. "It's so scary in the streets, so I dropped in to visit you. Do you recognize me? You and I, we used to romp together and hello at each other for days at a time. Back in the old country. Don't tell me you've forgotten." His voice literally blinded me. I felt dazzled and dizzy. I remembered the happiness, the echoing, endless, irreplaceable happiness. No, it can't be. I'm alone. I'm only some capricious delirium. Yet there really was somebody sitting next to me, bony and implausible, with long-eared German booties, and his voice tintimbulated, rustled, golden, luscious green, familiar, while the words were so simple, so human. "There, you remember. Yes, I am a former forest elf, a mischievous sprite, and here I am, forced to flee like everyone else." He heaved a deep sigh, and once again I had visions of billowing nimbus, lofty, leafy undulations, bright flashes of birch bark like splashes of sea foam against a dulcet, perpetual hum. He bent toward me and glanced gently into my eyes. "Remember our forest? Fir so black, birch all white. They've cut it all down. The grief was unbearable. I saw my dear birches crackling and falling, and how could I help? Into the marshes they drove me. I wept and I howled. I boomed like a bittern, then left lickety-split for a neighboring pinewood. There I pined and could not stop sobbing. I had barely grown used to it, and lo, there was no more pine wood, just blue tinted cinders. Had to do some more tramping. Found myself a wonderful wood it was, thick, dark, and cool. Yet somehow it was just not the same thing. In the old days, I'd frolic from dawn until dusk, whistle furiously, clap my hands, frighten passerby. You remember yourself. You lost your way once in a dark nook of my woods, you in some little white dress, and I kept tying the paths up in knots, spinning the tree trunks, twinkling through the foliage. Spent the whole night playing tricks, but I was only fooling around. It was all in jest, vilify me as they might. But now I am sobered up, for my new abode was not a merry one. Day and night, strange things crackled around me. At first, I thought a fellow elf was lurking there. I called, then listened. Something crackled, something rumbled. But no, those were not the kinds of sounds we make. Once toward evening, I skipped out into a glade, and what do I see? People lying around, some on their backs, some on their bellies. Well, I think, I'll wake them up. I'll get them moving. And I went to work, shaking bows, bombarding with cones, rustling, hooting. I toiled away for a whole hour, all to no avail. Then I took a closer look, and I was horror-struck. Here's a man with his head hanging by one flimsy crimson thread. There's one with a heap of thick worms for a stomach. I could not endure it. I let out a howl, jumped in the air, and off I ran. Long I wandered through different forests, but I could find no peace. Either it was stillness, desolation, mortal boredom, or just horror. It's better not to think about it. At last I made up my mind and changed into a bumpkin, a tramp with a knapsack, and left for good. Rush, adieu. Here, a kindred spirit, a water sprite, gave me a hand. Poor fellow was on the run too. He kept marveling, just saying, "What times are upon us? A real calamity." And even if, in olden times, he had his fun, used to lure people down, a hospitable one he was, in recompense, how he petted and pampered them on the Gold River bottom with what songs he bewitched them. These days, he says, only dead men come floating by, floating in batches, enormous numbers of them, and the river's moisture is like blood, thick, warm, sticky, and there's nothing for him to breathe. And so he took me with him. He went off to knock about some distant sea and put me ashore on a foggy coast. Go, brother, find yourself some friendly foliage. But I found nothing, and ended up here in this foreign, terrifying city of stone. Thus I turned into a human, complete with a proper starched collars and booties, and I've even learned human talk. He fell silent. His eyes glistened like wet leaves. His arms were crossed, and by the wavering light of the drowning candle, some pale strands combed to the left, shimmered so strangely. I know you two are pining, his voice shimmered again, but your pining, compared to mine, my tempestuous, turbulent pining, is but the even breathing of one who is asleep. And think about it, not one of our tribe is there left in Rus. Some of us swirled away like wisps of fog, others scattered over the world. Our native rivers are melancholy. There is no frisky hand to splash about the moon gleams. Silent are the orphaned bluebells that remain by chance unmown. The pale blue goosely that once served my rival, the ethereal field sprite, for his songs. The shaggy, friendly household spirit in tears has forsaken your besmirched, humiliated home, and the groves have withered, the pathetically luminous magically somber groves. It was we, Rus, who were your inspiration, your unfathomable beauty, your age-long enchantment. And we are all gone, gone, driven into exile by a crazed surveyor. My friend, soon I shall die. Say something to me. Tell me that you love me, a homeless phantom. Come sit closer. Give me your hand. The candle sputtered and went out. Cold fingers touched my palm. The familiar melancholy laugh pealed and fell still. When I turned on the light, there was no one in the armchair. No one. Nothing was left but a wondrously subtle scent in the room of birch, of humid moss. For today, Friday, January 15th, 2021, for me, it doesn't get much better than that. Thanks so much for coming. I'm going to let you simmer with that one. Listen again. Definitely was better my second time reading it, although I did cheat you on a couple of words there. I'm not going to go back and look yet now. I'm just going to sit with that. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.